I'm Mr. MegaManFan, and the plot of today's game on Genesis Does is so GD insane, I don't just want to talk over it, I want to narrate it. New York, 2010 AD. Nuclear explosions of unknown origin have hit New York City. The city was thrown into chaos and the massive metropolis was all but destroyed. Now, 20 years later, the restoration process had barely begun when a brutal organization marched into the city and conquered it. This organization was called Big Valley. Their soldiers were armed with advanced and bizarre weapons. And now, the government has requested 2 men secretly enter the ruins and put an end to Big Valley. These 2 men will be paid well for the job. These warriors, their names are 2 Crude Dudes. Onward, 2 Crude Dudes, let nothing defeat you! This game has gone by several different names over the years. It started out in Japan as Crude Buster. When it got released in arcades internationally, it was known as 2 Crude, and when it came to the Sega Genesis, they renamed it 2 Crude Dudes. Now you might think because of the name that this is a sequel to Bad Dudes. Technically, no. Spiritually, yes. Both games were made by Data East, and they are both belt action games, or side-scrolling beat-em-ups if you prefer, where you have to take out the enemies behind you, in front of you, and in some cases above and below you, and beat them into a bloody pulp. 2 Crude Dudes embraces the idea that the background and the objects in the foreground are destructible and can be used as weapons. So you can pick up a lot of things, even gigantic cars, and throw them at people. That shouldn't be possible, but these 2 Crude Dudes are incredibly muscular. They look like roided up pro wrestlers from the 1980s or early 90s, so perhaps they are just that damn strong. They are like Mark Henry levels of physically gifted. But even when they did those let's show off how strong Mark Henry is segments where he'd lift whole cars, there was some camera trickery involved because a human being can possibly lift 1,000 pounds with a weight belt on and do a squat and lift under some very controlled circumstances, but to lift a car that weighs multiple tons, your trickery has to be involved there. There's obviously some leverage with the car being tipped a little before he even gets it off the ground, so he's not really lifting the whole weight of the car. He's just lifting one side of the car and using the center of gravity to tip it over onto its side, which even a 30-pound weakling like me could probably do if it was set up correctly and filmed with the right camera angle to make it look convincing. I mean, you don't think Superman really lifts entire buses in movies, do you? Obviously not. That's CGI, that's special effects. Pro wrestling, no stranger to using the same tricks. Anyway, I'm getting off topic here. 2 Crude Dudes came out in Japan on the Genesis, or Mega Drive as it's known there, February 28th, 1992. The release dates in North America and the European Union are not listed on Wikipedia, but they both came out the same year in those territories. Specific dates unknown, but yes, they all came out in 1992. And later on, this got included on the Data East Arcade Classics, which was released for Nintendo Wii, and on that one we do have an exact date, February 19th, 2010. It was one of over a dozen games, including Bad Dudes vs. Dragon Ninja, there's that Bad Dudes tie-in again, and arcade classics like Burger Time and Heavy Barrel. So it's a compilation that I would recommend you get, especially if you have a Wii, although I imagine there are so many different ways to play Bad Dudes, 2 Crude Dudes, Heavy Barrel. I would imagine most of them have probably even been released on Nintendo Switch in the Arcade Classics archives. So there would be no shortage of different options for you. Sega Genesis is a good option though, because this feels natural and fun on a Sega Genesis / Mega Drive. It's got that same appeal as Streets of Rage to it, where You just naturally flow with the combat. In fact, even not knowing anything about this boss fight, I kind of figured out pretty quickly that he and his electric whip slash snake were separate sprites, and both of them could be attacked. So, by getting the pattern down, I was able to ultimately defeat both of them and advance to this bonus stage where you're beating up a vending machine full of cola. Kind of reminds me of the bonus scenes from Street Fighter where you would beat up a car, and if you destroyed it in time, you would get a whole bunch of bonus points. I wasn't sure what I would get for doing this, but apparently I was supposed to be picking up the cola to add extra health to my life bar. I thought I was just trying to destroy it in the amount of time that I had. So, my bad, but there's no reason I won't go back and play it again because, as I said, Two Crude Dudes is a simple and addictive kind of fun. There's only 3 buttons that you have to use. Even if you're using a 6-button Genesis controller, you just need to punch, kick, and jump. And sometimes you'll do both of those at the same time. Like, I discovered that the jump kick was a pretty easy way to mow down large groups of enemies, even ones that are as bulky as my Crude Dude, or that have special weapons equipped like lasers and boomerang shots. If you're using the jump kick, you can mow down multiple groups of enemies on either side in pretty quick order. Obviously, that pattern failed me when I encountered an enemy that was rolling around like a rock because I couldn't just fly into it with a kick, and that proved to be my undoing in the end. But that just gives me another reason to come back and play it some more. This is simple, addictive fun. I hate to be repetitive about that, but it's not even anything to do with the premise. They could have called the opening sequence anything they wanted. They could have said, "You've been left in a ravaged Neo-Tokyo. There was a brutal war that destroyed everything, and now the survivors are fighting for their lives. Take to the streets and demand justice. You are the one who can save this ruins of Neo-Tokyo from an apocalyptic future." Would have made just as much sense as the plot of Two Crude Dudes, right? And I just made that up off the top of my head. I don't sit down with a script when I do Genesis Does. I just talk to you guys about the game and things that I found out about it and my feelings about playing it. So I'm telling you right now, the plot of this game is absolutely inconsequential to the amount of fun that you will have playing it. So do yourself a favor. Find a copy of Two Crude Dudes. Hopefully it won't cost you too much, but emulate it if you have to, if it is too expensive. Thanks, as always, for watching.